Have you ever heard of a rap beef where gangs were sending 40 dudes on crash out missions, getting blown up in airstrikes, and executing their own homies in the middle of the street? That's what went down when two gangs from London started beefing, and today we're giving you the whole crazy story. Peckham and Brixton are two districts in South London, and their beef goes all the way back to the 50s, but the 2000s is when they took the violence to a crazy level. There's a ton of different sets in Peckham and Brixton, but the two main crews who turned the streets into a war zone were the Peckham Boys and Gas Gang from Brixton. The Peckham Boys started out in the 80s, but by the 2000s, they had split up into different groups. Pretty much every generation in the hood had their own crew, so there were the Peckham Boys, the younger Peckham Boys, aka YPB, the younger Peckham Boys, aka YYPB, and the Peckham Kids, aka PK. It's pretty confusing, but all the Peckham Boy crews were making headlines in the 2000s because they were turning up the streets like crazy. In 2000, two YPB affiliates stabbed another dude to death with a broken beer bottle, and people were starting to realize that Peckham was on a different level. The Peckham sets started changing their names, and sets like Spare No One, Peckham Young Gunners, Shoot Instant, and Don't Fuck Around were making noise for putting major pressure on the ops. Back then, it was way easier to get guns in London, and in 2004, the Peckham Boys were beefing heavy with a crew called the Ghetto Boys. The Ghetto Boys had ties all over South London, but most of the crew was from Lewisham, and they had been beefing with Peckham for decades. Most people weren't paying attention to the drama, but then in 2004, the Peckham Boys and Ghetto Boys ran into each other outside the Urban Music Awards and started shooting. A woman caught a stray bullet to the chest, and the only reason she survived is because the bullet hit the underwire in her bra. The cops booked the Ghetto Boys affiliate for the shooting, but that was only the beginning. In 2006, the Ghetto Boys spun on the Peckham Boys and shot up their hood twice, so the Peckham Boys allegedly clapped back and killed two dudes in Brixton who had ties to the Ghetto Boys. The Ghetto Boys were also running an area called New Cross, so the Peckham Boys stood on them too and hit somebody with a bottle. The violence was heating up every day. In that same week, 40 Peckham Boys rode into New Cross with knives and stabbed a dude named Jason Gale Brent to death. Jason used to rep the Ghetto Boys, but left the streets after he had been stabbed before. He was chilling on the block when the Peckham Boys pulled up, and the cops think they thought Jason was a different member of the Ghetto Boys, and that's why they brutally killed him. But Jason Gale Brent wasn't the only dude who got stabbed that night. The Peckham Boys also slid into Ghetto Boys territory in Deptford and stabbed another dude, but he survived. The Ghetto Boys weren't going to let Peckham punish him without clapping back, and the next day, they pulled up to a basketball court in Peckham and started shooting. Nobody got hit, but then in October 2008, the Ghetto Boys and Peckham Boys got into another shootout and killed an innocent woman. Nobody thought the violence was going to stop, but then the Peckham Boys and Ghetto Boys squashed the beef and started linking up. The Ghetto Boys and Peckham probably would have never made peace if an OG from the Ghetto Boys named Sparks didn't get brutally killed by his own homie. Sparks was allegedly the dude calling the shots in the Ghetto Boys, but he was known for crashing out too. He allegedly murdered a dude outside a club in 2002, but the witnesses didn't show up to the trial and the case got dropped. Sparks skated on the case, but then in 2006, he pushed it too far with his own crew and got killed for it. Sparks was tied with a dude named Delphin Nicholas, but Sparks stomped out Delphin's dad and stole his car. Delphin was locked up, but he smuggled in a phone and set up a fake weed deal for Sparks. When Sparks got to the spot where he was gonna buy the weed, Delphin's homie Trevor popped out and shot him to death. After Sparks died, the Ghetto Boys started splitting up into different crews and weren't focused on the beef with Peckham anymore. Ending the beef was a huge moment for Southeast London, but the Peckham Boys were about to kick off a war that made the Ghetto Boys drama look like nothing. Peckham and Brixton had already been beefing for years, but what sparked a crazy wave of violence was when Brixton slid on two rappers from Peckham named Snap Capone and Nutty. Snap Capone was allegedly one of the wildest dudes in Peckham, and on the track Shots, he rapped, "I killed 2 niggas and shot 20 niggas and still ain't been touched. Excellent finish, clinical headshots. Feds caught night gloves, see red in my eyes like Cyclops. If I bang on your whip, that's a write-off. If I ride to your block, that's a life lost." Snap Capone allegedly even shot one of his own homies and raps about it. According to rumors, a dude named Benny stole Snap Capone's strap, so Snap got another gun and shot him. And on the track 4 Summers, Snap said, "Fresh home from jail, completed 4 summers, calling for a meeting if the niggas talking numbers. Nigga, I ain't greedy, I feed on my youngers. The nigga robbed my gun, so I shot him in the stomach." Snap Capone also allegedly killed a dude named Mimer from a set called MOB, and he allegedly self-snitched again on the same track when he rapped, "Life's deep, so I dig a stick on me like a sticker. Chest shot split his liver. The way you rap, you are not that nigga." And "Fed stop skirt, that's a car chase. More guns than an arcade. Chest shot make his heart break." Snap Capone and Nutty were both putting on for Peckham in the rap game, and in 2008, a Brixton set called OC tried to kill him on Woolwich Road. OC, aka Organized Crime, had heavy ties to Gas Gang, which was the biggest and most violent crew in Brixton. A dude named Don Boost and another shooter caught Snap Capone and Nutty lacking on Woolwich Road and started letting off shots. Snap Capone and Nutty ducked into a shop and didn't get hit, but an innocent person got caught up in the situation and died. After it went down, some dudes from OC did Snap Capone and Nutty and rapped, "Have you running in the shop like you buying something?" Then, Young Size, T Snap, and Stiggs from the Peckham set PYG clapped back on the track Real Riders and rapped, "You had two turners and never turned nothing. When I ride up on your block, I'ma turn something up." He thinks he can try come Woolly Road and bark it off, but when I come up on your block, Lil Dickhead signing off. Snap Capone and Nutty survived when Brixton slid on them, but after the disses started flying back and forth, Brixton slid on Peckham again and killed a dude named Terms. According to rumors, someone dropped Terms' location to the shooters and they pulled up to his crib. When Terms walked outside, the shooters were already waiting for him and left him dead in the street. Some sets that were cool with Peckham started rocking with the ops too. OBY switched sides and linked up with Brixton, but then one of their members got stabbed to death immediately. Then a dude from OBY upped a fake gun at the ops, but after they realized the gun wasn't real, they chased him down and killed him. The cops were trying to take all the gangs down, and they were even blocking rappers from putting on shows. Giggs was blowing up in the rap scene back then, and he repped a Peckham set called SN1, aka Spare No One. Giggs had been rapping for a long time already, but he got slowed down when he went to prison on gun charges. But after he came back home, Giggs dropped some of the hottest mixtapes in London and was putting SN1 on the map. Giggs is also the one who let everyone know that the Ghetto Boys war was over when he rapped, "Ghetto v Peckham, I ain't on that dead beef, so I holla at my motherfucking nigga Smiley." SN1 dropped a whole project together, but they were still putting in work in the streets, and Giggs was getting blackballed in the rap game. So he dropped the track F the Industry and rapped, "I'ma give it to him raw, so fuck the industry. They won't let us in, we'll be kicking in the door. This is our game now, our turf now. We should be pissing on the floor." But the industry dudes weren't the only ones who were afraid of Giggs and his crew. And in 2009, the cops started paying more attention to SN1 because they allegedly executed one of their own members who crossed them. The cops still couldn't stop Giggs and SN1's momentum in the rap game though. And in 2008, Giggs was the first rapper to ever win Best International Act at the BET Hip Hop Awards. Giggs was even getting fans in America. But back in London, SN1 was putting major pressure on the ops. A month after Giggs' homie Terms got killed outside of his crib by Brixton, SN1 allegedly clapped back and killed a dude from Brixton's OC set called Sense. Sense was at a club in front of hundreds of people when someone walked right up and shot him to death. Nobody was ever booked for killing Sense, but pretty much everyone says someone from Peckham pulled the trigger on him. Right after that is when SN1 allegedly executed their own member in the middle of the street. Big Larry repped Peckham and had ties to SN1, but after he fell out with them, he was shot in the back of his head and his murder made headlines all over the city. Brixton and Peckham were making even more noise because the disses kept heating up while bodies were dropping in the trenches. Sneaky and YT from Gas Gang dropped a Peckham diss called R3 Style, so Peckham rappers used the same beat and clapped back at Brixton on the track Pecky Side / Fuck Gully Side. Peckham kept the pressure up in the booth with tracks like Record G and Police and Thief. But Brixton was clapping back with their own disses and really putting the beef in the spotlight. Brixton and Peckham were siding on each other so much that both areas became no-go zones for anyone who wasn't looking for smoke. The crews would crash out with 30 or 40 dudes carrying guns and knives, and getting anywhere near that could be a death sentence even if you were just passing through. The rap disses took everything to another level, but then Peckham and Brixton's beef started cooling off because Peckham started having some crazy internal drama. There had already been a civil war in Peckham in the early 2000s, but in 2009, a new war sparked up after Snap Capone and his homie Tim allegedly killed a dude named Mimer. Mimer repped a set called MOB, aka Mandem on Brandon. It's not clear why Snap Capone and Tim allegedly wanted him dead, but they both ended up beating the case, and one of their young homies went down for having the gun that was used on the hit. Then Shoot Instant took a big loss when Nutty got locked up on a gun charge. If he had just kept his head down and did the time, Nutty would have been back on the streets in a couple of years. But instead, he tried to get a young dude to take the fall and everything went left. Nutty wanted a dude named Samuel Oguna to take the charge, but when Samuel Oguna said he wouldn't do it, someone pulled up and shot him to death in a whip and then set the car on fire. Nutty was hit with a 32-year sentence for setting the whole thing up, and another Peckham affiliate named CS got 4 years for torching the whip. Then Peckham went into a crazy internal war. One of the blocks that rep Peckham was the Letsum estate, but in the late 2000s, they started beefing with the rest of Peckham and started a crew called the Letsum G's. And in September 2010, a dude from Peckham named Taz wrecked his motorcycle and died during the chase. Later that day, somebody set up a memorial for him, and Lil Grim from Letsum got shot there while he was paying his respects. Snap Capone's older homie got hit with 35 years for killing Lil Grim. Then a couple months later, a dude named Vesta from Crane Block got shot to death, and 2 of his homies got stabbed. Crane Block was in Peckham too, but the Civil War meant nobody was safe. And after Vesta got killed, the young dudes on the block started handing out stop snitching papers around the hood to warn everyone not to work with the cops. The Peckham boys also started beefing with the dudes on Woolwich Road, even though they allegedly used to slide on Brixton together. And what went down on Woolwich is one of the craziest stories in London. Some of the Woolwich boys were putting major work in the trenches, but then they started getting recruited by ISIS to go to the Middle East and fight for them. The Woolwich boys were converting to Islam and getting trained to actually go to war, and 16 of them left the block and went to Syria to fight for ISIS. Linking up with terrorists was a bad idea for a lot of reasons, and all 16 of the Woolwich boys ended up getting killed in an airstrike right after they landed in Syria. While Peckham was beefing internally, the drama with Brixton started dying off. In 2010, a dude named Sylvester Acapulera was shot and killed in Heron House in Peckham, and at first rumors were going around that Gas Gang was involved with the hit. But later the news broke that Sylvester got killed by someone else from Peckham and was just another victim of the Civil War. Gas Gang was starting to put major pressure on their ops though, and in 2010, they stabbed a member of a set called Trust No One, aka TN1. Then 2 days later, TN1 tried to go to a chicken spot in Brixton, and 25 Gas Gang members pulled up and surrounded the restaurant. The situation was looking bad for TN1, but luckily for them, the cops showed up before Gas Gang could kill anyone. That wasn't the only time Gas Gang slid on TN1 though, and in 2010, they also murdered a dude from there named Lil Zach. Lil Zach also had ties to a set called ABM, aka All About Money, and they started beefing with Gas Gang too after Lil Zach got killed. Gas Gang was tearing the city up like crazy, and the cops said they were involved with almost 80% of the violent crime in Brixton. The dudes in Peckham were just as wild though, and that's what made their beef so deadly. Both sides had a ton of crash outs who were always ready to slide, and they turned the area into one of the scariest places in London. But after Peckham started having internal beef and killing their own homies, and Brixton sparked a bunch of drama with other crews, Peckham and Brixton stopped sliding on each other all the time. Brixton and Peckham had the craziest beef in London, but that kind of violence couldn't last for long. Both sides lost a lot of people, and after leaders started getting killed and going to prison, it was only a matter of time before it all fell apart.